Welcome back, Brooklyn Nets fans. The regular season's over, 82 games are done with, and as I said, probably the most frustrating regular season I could remember being a Nets fan. I mean, like 2009/2010 when they went 12 and 70. It sucked, but it got to a point where it was laughable. You know what I mean? They were like 4 and 46 at one point. It was laughable. So this time, though, when you have championship aspirations like this team did, and you fall to the 10 seed as soon as last week or as early as last week, this was a frustrating regular season. But now it's over. They're 0-0. They got to win these playing games, or hopefully just one game. Hopefully they can win on Tuesday, as they will play the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about tonight's game, today's game against the Pacers. The Nets won 134-126. We'll talk about the playing game, what to look forward to in the playoffs, assuming they get by the Cavs on Tuesday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, always helps out, and let's get into it. So this game reminded me of the last few Nets games when they played like lower competition, and they had a great first half, a 76-60 lead at halftime. You're thinking, all right, it's going to be a nice, easy game. It's going to be over by the third quarter. We'll send the Pacers home. It's going to be like a 30-point victory. And then the third quarter happens, and the Nets out of halftime were sleepwalking, dumb turnovers, and not making shots offensively. The third quarter goes, Buddy Hield three-pointer, McConnell three-pointer, Halliburton makes it two, Brissett makes back-to-back threes, and then in a blink of an eye, it's a 4-point game. So you go from a 16-point lead at halftime to a 4-point lead with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter, and you're like, oh crap, we have a game here. But after that time, when the timeout happened and Steve Nash was pissed, you can tell by his body language he was not happy with how his team responded out of halftime. The Nets really turned it on after that, and it wasn't like they blew them out, but you can tell the Nets had control of this game at the end of the third quarter. It was a 103-94 lead after three, so you're like, all right, we're in a good spot here. But the Nets defense was once again concerning in this matchup. I mean, the thing that killed the Nets today was turnovers and points off turnovers for the Pacers, but some of the defensive rotations, there was a play where a Pacers shooter was in the corner and two guys rotated to him and left the guy in the wing wide open. Like, the rotations are so bad defensively sometimes, so it's been frustrating. It just seems like every time they close out on a shooter, they close out way too hard and they go by him easily, and then it just creates a mismatch and creates numbers for the other team. It's been frustrating. So the defense has to get better, and we're hoping that, of course, Ben Simmons can come back. We'll talk about that later. Some positive Ben Simmons news came out. But, right now at least, this defense is not looking that great, and it just seems like the closeouts they're way too aggressive on closeouts. They don't know how to rotate on defense. The rebounding, I feel like, has not been that terrible since Drummond's been here, so I can't really complain about that. But another part of it is some of the careless turnovers offensively. Like Kevin Durant, yes, had a career high in assists today with like 16, but he also had 6 turnovers, and you don't want to see that. So we saw a bad Patty Mills pass in the third quarter that got intercepted, went down the other way for a dunk. I mean, we just see so many bad passes and careless passes from this team, and that stuff has to change. You can't do that in the playoffs if you want to advance versus a Boston team or Milwaukee team, depending on how the Celtics game goes tonight. But by the time this is uploaded, we'll probably know who's the 2 seed, who's the 3 seed. But still, I mean, if you play like that and just have careless turnover after careless turnover and don't know how to rotate defensively, it's going to make it that much harder. And you know what? I mean, this team has enough talent to get by for the most part, but they can do it versus the Pacers, the Knicks, the Rockets. When you start playing these top of the conference type teams, it can't be that way. You have to play a better brand of basketball, and we've seen too much of it. I mean, they were saved today by Kyrie Irving having a just amazing game. I mean, efficiency-wise, he was great in this game. Kyrie was 15 of 20 shooting in this game, 4 of 6 from 3. Now, Kevin Durant, I mean, yes, he had a lot of assists. 16 of them had a triple-double. That's great, but he was 5 of 17, 0 for 6 from downtown. Did have 20 points, but, it's not really a good Kevin Durant game. Bruce Brown had another good game. You love seeing that, of course. I want him back next year. They got to re-sign him. Kessler Edwards played 39 minutes. My goodness, he was 4 of 7, had 10 points. He was a +8. And Kessler just continues to show up with, the floaters. He was playing good defense. So he's been definitely improving his game. You can tell his handles got a bit better as well. Andre Drummond, especially in the first half, he was dominant in the first half, but he was 8 of 8 at halftime. He finished 9 of 9, 20 points, 13 rebounds, and this was a good Drummond game. We talked about that last video. Sometimes you get very bad Drummond, sometimes you get very good Drummond. This was a very good Drummond game. I like what I saw from Nick Claxton today. He didn't miss a shot either. 6 of 6, 14 points. He had 4 assists, 6 rebounds. So I thought he played pretty well for the most part. Patty Mills, another pretty good game for him. 3 of 6, 2 of 5 from 3. 8 points. He had 2 assists, had a beautiful pass to Nick Claxton setting up a dunk. It was one of those like wraparound passes in the paint. It was beautiful. So if we get that version of Patty Mills in the playoffs, I like our chances that much more. So Patty Mills, the past 3 games now, I believe, it was the Rockets, Knicks, and this game, he's been playing a lot better. We shot the ball okay today. I mean, especially from the field, 64%, but from 3, they were 36%, which is okay, not that great. But the problem in this game, as I mentioned, was the points off turnovers, and the Nets had 21 turnovers themselves as a team. The Pacers only had 7, and most times when you play a good team and you lose a turnover battle by that many, 14, you're going to lose. But luckily, the Nets have a lot more talent than the Indiana Pacers do. So the Nets did have a lot of points in the paint, though. Once again, that's like back-to-back games of a lot of points in the paint there. I think we saw versus Cleveland on Friday, and now we see 74 points in the paint today. I just talked about how Claxton and Drummond did not miss a shot today, and of course their shots come in the paint. So you do love seeing that. Kyrie Irving had some shots, a couple floaters in this game, some awesome layups he had. Like Kyrie had some great highlight reel type plays, that like triple threat on McConnell, then he kind of pulled it back, made the 3. That was an awesome play as well. So that guy put on a show today. But that's pretty much all I got from this game. I mean, there's not like, the Pacers gave them a bit of a run in the third quarter, but for the most part, the Nets had this game. I think Kevin Durant looked kind of disinterested in the first half, but kind of picked it up when the game got close, and he did have some bad turnovers once again. But, you know, as I said, Kyrie was locked in, and more importantly, Kyrie and KD going into the playoffs are healthy. That's pretty much all we can ask for. As for Ben Simmons, we'll see about that. Now, Shams came out today. I think somebody else. Anyway, Shams said, sources, there's optimism Nets star Ben Simmons can make debut during first round of the NBA playoffs as long as his progression continues in strengthening his legs and back. Simmons has been ramping up, we love that word, ramping up his workload and expected to continue doing so. Then he quote tweeted saying that Simmons and the Nets have been managing his back issue and have been on the same page, and should he continue clearing ramp-up hurdles, he will be able to return, yes, in the playoffs. So that's great news. I mean, we saw the videos of Ben Simmons posted last night. There was a video of him shooting, and we're like, oh my God, Ben Simmons is actually doing something. And then he was at shoot-around today before this game. So Ben Simmons is clearly doing more, and the Nets are showing it, whether it's through video or in the pregame. Like, we're seeing Ben Simmons do more. Is he going full speed? No, this is like half speed, shoot-around type thing. He's probably going like 70%. But still, I mean, to see Ben Simmons doing more and hearing about this, that's great. Of course, Steve Nash, I mean, I can't believe anything Steve Nash says, but Steve Nash kind of played it down after the game was over and says, like, you know, he still has a long way to go before getting into game action, and he's right about that. Like, Steve Nash, I don't think is lying about that, but Steve Nash always makes things sound way worse than they actually are. So I don't think Ben Simmons is all that far away from playing. Of course, he can tweak his back tomorrow, and that's it. So I'm not going to get too overexcited about this, but if things continue to progress well with his rehab and all that stuff, and they strengthen his legs and his back, Ben Simmons could be back at some point in the first round. So that is great news, and I don't think Simmons is going to play 35 minutes off the bat. I think Ben Simmons is going to get 15, 20 minutes the first couple games maybe, and they'll try to ease him in. But to get Ben Simmons at all would be great for this Brooklyn Nets team because, you know, as Steve Nash said, like, he doesn't want to play Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving 40-something minutes a night, but when you have Ben Simmons and Joe Harris out, it makes it that much harder. So if you get Ben Simmons back and can play him for 15, 20 minutes, it's going to take some of the load off of those guys. So that's the good news, and of course, as Nets fans, we just want to see Ben Simmons play in a Nets uniform. It's been a long time coming. It's only been a couple months, but it feels like forever. So we want to see it, and we got some good news about it today. So as long as that rehab and stuff continues to go well, we could see Ben Simmons in the first round of the playoffs, assuming the Nets get there. Now, as for the play-in tournament, that will happen on Tuesday for the Nets. Cleveland at Brooklyn, 7 p.m., April 12th. Now, if the Nets lose that game, they still have another chance to get in the playoffs, but they would have to wait until April 15th, which is on Friday. So if the Nets were to lose on Tuesday, we would have to wait all the way until Friday to find out if the Nets go on or their season's over. And I do not feel like waiting a whole 3 days to find out that answer, because that would be way too much anxiety for me, having to wait Wednesday, Thursday, all day Friday to see if the Nets season's over or not. So yeah, please get the job done Tuesday. That's all I'm asking. So we'll see what happens versus Cleveland, Barclays Center on Tuesday. The Nets, of course, played the Cleveland Cavaliers just on Friday at the Barclays Center. The Nets won that game by 11. They had an awesome fourth quarter, outscoring Cleveland 35-19. Now, there's a chance Jared Allen, our old friend, is back for the Cavs in that game. I hope he's not, honestly, because that would help out the Cavs a lot. But Jared Allen may come back for that game. We'll see. But either way, I think the Nets should win that game. I mean, we saw that when they really tried in the fourth quarter, they did a really good job closing out Cleveland. So I just hope that, we continue to play like that for an entire game. I know it's tough to ask that sometimes, but it was a weird game because the Nets killed them in the first quarter. The Cavs won by 7 in the second quarter. Cavs killed us in the third quarter. Then the Nets killed them in the fourth quarter. So it was a very weird game like that, but looking up and down the rosters, the Nets are the more talented team than the Cavaliers, and as long as we get like a good Kevin Durant performance, a good Kyrie performance, and some of the role guys just play okay, I mean, I think they'll be fine. So we'll see what happens then. But it's nice to not have to worry about 7 seed, 8 seed, 9 seed, 10 seed, root against the Hawks, root against the Hornets, and root against the other team we're battling with, the Cavaliers. So it's just nice to not have to worry about that anymore. And honestly, this regular season sucked, and I'm happy it's over. Like at one point when the Nets were, I think they were 29-16 at one point, something along those lines. The season was fine, but then, of course, just the unthinkable happened. Kevin Durant gets hurt. James Harden forces his way out. Kyrie Irving is still not a full-time guy. So during that January, February time, it was a rough time to be a Nets fan. So anyway, I'm happy we're here now. Once again, we're starting 0-0. We'll see what happens, whether, we have to face the Bucks or the Celtics in the next round. We'll see what happens if they lose on Tuesday but happen to win on Friday. They would play the Miami Heat, which is actually better, in my opinion at least. I would much rather play the Heat than the Celtics or the Bucks. But at the same time, you're not going to tank a playing game. That is way too risky. You don't want to put your entire season into one game because, of course, crazy things can happen. So they're going to try and win Tuesday. I can guarantee you that. But I would much rather play the Miami Heat, but unfortunately that's probably not going to be the case. So it's not going to be the case if they win on Tuesday. So in my opinion, though, there's definitely been some disagreement by Nets fans on this topic of who would you rather play, the Celtics or the Bucks. I'd rather play the Celtics, and the Robert Williams injury definitely influences my decision. If they still had Robert Williams and were still playing like that well with him as they were a couple weeks ago, I probably would prefer to see the Bucks, but now that the Celtics have their defensive anchor in the paint out, it's going to help guys like Kyrie Irving, Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton, even Kevin Durant when he drives. Like, it's going to help all those guys. So I think I would prefer the Celtics without Robert Williams, and the Celtics coach, Udoka, pretty much confirmed that they're not expecting Robert Williams in the first round, so that's going to be the Celtics team without him. And we know the Bucks are just built perfectly to beat the Nets, so, based on how last year's series went, based on how this year has gone, the recent game we had against Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, I definitely fear that team very much, so I'd rather not have to play them in the first round. Looking at it now, the Celtics are up 4 in the first quarter. By the time this is uploaded, we'll know the outcome of the 2 and the 3 seed, but I'm rooting for the Celtics to win this game in Memphis right now. But anyway, that's going to do it here. So we got, took care of business today. Got some Ben Simmons, good news, which is great, and we'll find out what happens here with the Celtics. As long as the Celtics win today, I would feel like the Nets had a pretty perfect day, honestly. So we'll find out what happens there. I will talk to you guys after Tuesday, of course. We'll see what happens with the first playing game. If the Nets were to win that game, they will face the 2 seed and be in a best out of 7 series, and that's pretty much what we all want. So we'll see what happens then. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys on Tuesday night.